Not really sure how to frame this. Hey guys, it's Dave with my brand new Lowe's Rescue Orchid, meaning I got it off the clearance shelf. I had a little different idea of what I was going to do with this plant. I was thinking about cutting it above a node and seeing how the branching would go, if it would go. I think I watched enough people who are really experienced in orchids kind of say that it weakens the plant overall and basically it would diminish the flowers for next season, that I talked myself out of that. I am going to repot this and just cut that spike off. And this is not a tutorial. I don't know anything about orchids, so not a tutorial. But it is a PSA if you're going to go to Lowe's or any big box store for buying a clearance orchid. Stick with me. I have already made a mess. Somehow I've already spilled the cocoa chips that are in here. Let me give you a look at those roots real quick. They look really good. And I was really shopping for a white Phalaenopsis, and these looked like they do now. You know, they have turned. This orchid I've had for a few days, and so not looking that great. I wasn't really attracted to this color, even though purple is my favorite color. It's the best color, and that's not even up for debate. You can put in the comments what you think the best color is, but it's purple. But it didn't strike me. I like the really subtle flowers better, but with overhead lighting or backlighting, this is really beautiful. So I'm glad I went with this. But that is not the reason I went with this, because I didn't know that yet. There was a white flowered version with just a hint of purple just coming out from the middle. Like, think of a really delicate Japanese watercolor, just a trace, really subtle, really, really beautiful. The PSA part of this message is, do not buy a clearance plant based on what the flowers look like, because it looked like you could sell it as a brand new orchid. There was no wilting, there was nothing wrong with it. But, I mean, I'm not bold enough to go film in a Lowe's or a big box store like some YouTubers are. I can promise you, and I'm not a shy person, but that will never happen. Never, ever, ever. But I pulled down the cellophane or whatever that plastic is that holds the orchid together for us, and the roots were 100% desiccated. There was not one viable root in there. And when they're as dry as these get by the time they hit, at least our clearance section is usually plants that should just be thrown away. Rarely does a plant even look salvageable. I was impressed that there were some decent looking orchids. A lot of times the leaves are really turning, and you can tell it's just a very unhealthy plant. These leaves look fantastic. You know, it's just a matter of these flowers are turning. And a lot of people buy these as a bouquet and they're going to dispose of it. And I think that's fair. It's wasteful of resources and et cetera, but most people aren't going to take the time to learn how to rebloom a Phalaenopsis orchid, right? I mean, I'm going to show you a picture of my first one. I got it a year ago spring as just a plant at a thrift store. I mean, just the leaves, just a plant. Yes, it was a plant, but it was just leaves. And the surprise of those blooms, whew, the surprise that they lasted over 7 months until I finally cut the spike, realizing we'd better put some more energy into that plant, those leaves and growth. It's spiking again, and I think it's going to do 2 again. So what a great introduction to orchids. Just like no idea what the flower was going to look like. And whew. Anyway, I digress as usual. When I pulled the cellophane down on this one, the roots looked really, really good. They were just silver like you would expect from not being watered, but I didn't see any problems at all. And let's just get rid of these. Hey, I have a question for you orchid people. Do you know where to buy these little devices right here? They're like little Ziplocs. One part goes around the stake, and then you kind of Ziploc it around the spike. Really clever. I guess dragon clips are just as good, but I think it's a really good idea. I'm very surprised by what I'm going to tell you here. There is no foam plug. Isn't that interesting? I don't think I've ever heard of this happening, but it obviously happens. I'm not like on the inside of the orchid world, but everybody complains about those plugs, and rightly so. I mean, it's a natural part of how they're grown, but when they're up potted with those plugs, they just hold on to so much water. So I am just going to get rid of this cocoa chip. It's pure cocoa chip. And I have pre-moistened my, oh yeah, bonsai scissors. Nice Christmas present for yourself if you want to hit up my Amazon storefront. And let's see what else we have here. So anything that, I mean, I know this much about roots. You know, if it feels hollow, you're going to want to cut it off. I'm really very, very impressed here. Gosh, what a good find. They had a special a few weeks ago, because I'm sure you know that Lowe's does half price on plants over $15, I think it is. So it made it $10 and then 5% extra if you have a Lowe's card. But they had them for $5 a few weeks ago, but they didn't look great. They look a lot like the ones I saw the other day. So if you can bring yourself to do it, to pull that plastic off, take a look at the roots. You just can't tell, unless the leaves are clearly turning, then, you know, yellowed and brown, and you know that the plant is in horrible shape. And I mean, I wouldn't bring that home. But you know, in terms of if the leaves look okay and the flowers look okay, you really don't know what the roots are doing without taking a peek. And I don't think anybody, well, nobody at my Lowe's is going to care. But I live in a really, really friendly town. So maybe there are Lowe's out there that they would take issue with that. I think that looks pretty good. I am going to spray this with hydrogen peroxide just because. I'm not saying that I have to, but it's here and it's not going to hurt anything. And so why not? And that was just a broken root that I took off there. Gosh, I am really happy with this. Funny story, I let myself run out of hydrogen peroxide, of all things, something I use all the time. So I didn't hydrogen peroxide those roots. I also didn't trim the spike, so I will do that, you know, way clear down here. And my Phalaenopsis got a really late start on spiking because Iowa was incredibly warm all fall, late fall. I just cleared off the plant porch. I had to do some supplemental heating for a few days, but I just got around to that last week. So very unusually warm, and if you don't know, Phalaenopsis need that cool down period to initiate that spike. So I'm curious to see how it goes. I mean, it was in bloom last year at this time, so gonna get a very, very late flowering. I don't use plastic for anything else, but I do find myself wishing that that orchid was in plastic. And I have a couple from Hausermann's that are in black plastic that I can't see through. They're so light. They're like advanced blooming age former seedlings, but they're small. They're so light that I can't tell if they need to be watered or not. Fortunately, my single probe water meter can kind of get in there, and it can read if it's moist or dry, but it's tight. So in this case, I'm going to make an exception, and you'll be seeing not carrot tips and stuff, but you'll be seeing more orchids on my channel for sure. I was going to join the Eastern Iowa Orchid Society on December 5th, but I was just way too ill. I've had a terrible cold on top of long COVID, and it really, and trying to do too much, so it just wiped me out. But I am yammering on, aren't I? Let's get to it. I have AAA sphagnum moss. That's that Best Grow stuff. I think I did put this in my Amazon store too because it's absolutely fantastic. I have bought so many different sphagnum mosses that suck, purely suck. And I one time bought some sphagnum moss from Menards. It was like $5 for a little thing. It was twigs. It was nothing but twigs. It was absolutely crazy. The bark I'm using is just the Better Grow bark you can get at Lowe's. I can't justify the price of Orchiata. I've had that before. I found a bag thrift shopping. It's fantastic. It's very uniform in size. It's, I believe, baked, not steamed, so it's also very hard. It does not hold water well, which is a problem for me here a little bit. I'm putting a little sphagnum moss on top of that bark. But, you know, this is a $10 orchid, and I don't want to use $5 worth of bark or whatever it would come out to be. And I'm just going to kind of size that up where it would lay. See what it naturally kind of wants to go this direction. I'm not going to try to make it stand up since obviously it wants to lean over anyway. Put a little bark in here, maybe a little more sphagnum. Did any of you grow in pure sphagnum? That scares me a little in a living room where this will be, that gets so cold, to have something that stays wet that long. My white rain that I got from Hauserman's is one of a couple plants I have in pure sphagnum. It seems to be doing just fine, but doesn't mean it doesn't make me nervous. And maybe it's just because it's new for me. I doubt I'm going to do it. But let me know your experience. I mean, I don't need to make everything as hard as possible if growing in sphagnum moss would actually be, you know, safer in the long run and easier on me, I guess. We'll make this work. You know, I might actually, I'm going to take off this bottom leaf. Now I have to start over a little bit to bury the root. That's okay. There we go. I didn't want, in other words, I didn't want to bury that leaf, obviously, not ideal. You just sit there and rot and create problems. The other thing with sphagnum moss that I don't understand, and I don't even know how to spell it, but Danny from Miss Orchid Girl mentions cyanobacteria, cyano, and that may be short for something else. I know for sure there are orchid people on this channel because somebody on here gave me some sweet recommendations for orchids that I might like. I do. They're on my wish list to buy when it warms up, and I was trying to give credit to another viewer I'm in regular contact with. It wasn't that viewer's, I just can't remember who you were, but thank you so much. I love them. They're just great. And also on that, stop it, that unboxing from Hauserman's, a bunch of orchid people recommended other channels to me, and yeah, I'm just really having a great time. Roger's Orchids and Bonsai Garden, Matthew at Hello Plant Lovers, and some others. Just, that's great. Troy gave me those recommendations, and he too has a YouTube channel. So it's just so much great information from people who are really skilled, and which is not me, but I sure am excited about this new part of my hobby. And I see that Miro is getting back into orchids, totally stealing my thunder. I thought I might have one thing that he wasn't doing himself, because he kind of started adding aeroids back in, and now begonia, and now, how does he fit all those into his room? But now orchids. So There's room for both of us, right? I mean, I know he's your favorite, but you can check in on me occasionally. Well, that's it. Just like that, we're done. I will water this in. I will give it some good light. You are going to see the shelves I built just for orchids. When I go in on something, I take it seriously like I do everything except myself, like I just recently mentioned. I'm not on the list of things I take seriously, but my hobbies, absolutely I do. I've got some good videos coming up if I can keep my gold under wraps. I think you're going to like them. So I want to see you in one or more of those real soon, okay? Bye-bye.